You woke? Time to get up. Hello and welcome to Thought You Were Woke No Speed Limit Podcast. I am your host, Alvin. I hope you are having a wonderful day. Today I decided let's talk about the Rittenhouse verdict. As you know, Kyle Rittenhouse has been found not guilty on all charges. Protests did erupt all over the country and have continued every day since the verdict. President Biden expressed disappointment in the verdict, but called for calm and stated that the jury system works, but avoided questions about his comments about Rittenhouse on Twitter. Reaction continues to pour in across the nation, including comments from several prominent celebrities and media personalities such as NBA coach Steve Kerr, actor Viola Davis, singer-songwriter Lizzo, and actor George Takei, among others. Effects of the original shooting and subsequent verdict continue. And that's where I'm going to cut this off for a second. Just in that statement, there's a lot. So Kyle Rittenhouse, of course, has been found not guilty on all charges. From looking at the court case, it was a lot of gray areas. It could have went either way. I am not surprised by the verdict by any means whatsoever. I did say in my video why he was at fault for what happened. It is also, if you see my other video also about the Ahmaud Arbery case, how the shooters in that case are at fault. There's some similarities. When you decide to take yourself and put yourself in a situation where you could possibly do harm to others, I do not call that self-defense. I call that an offensive move. Now, the world may not see it the same way that I do, but I do see it as an offensive move. You've decided that I'm going to put myself in harm's way, not like the military, where I'm defending a position. You are defending a position, but you're defending a position against unarmed people. For what purpose? There had been violent clashes the night before, and I understand that, and you were there to protect the property, but what were you going to do to protect the property? Of course, the only thing you could possibly do, other than stand there with a gun and act as if you were, this is my way of saying you're not going to enter this property. Okay, well, if I don't touch you and I start hitting and beating up on cars, you're going to point the gun at me and shoot me? Because now you're in violation of the law. Not saying that that's right. I'm not saying that that kind of violence is right. That is not what I'm saying. Or that rioting is right. But there's one thing that's different. Rioters, for the most part, aren't attacking people. They're attacking property. But when armed men show up to a protest in bulletproof vests, it looks like they're looking for trouble. That's what they were doing in that case to me. Now, in the other case that I mentioned, the Ahmaud Arbery case, two white men decided to take the law into their own hands, jump into a truck, chase a man running down the street that they assumed committed a crime. Again, there's a theme in both of these. Armed white men with guns taking the law into their own hands because there's an ownership of the law, a power to believing that I have the power to do this. I have a right to do this. I am opposed to an organization. Now, we can say Kyle Rittenhouse and say, well, you can't say it's white supremacy. He killed two white men. But those two white men, or at least one of them, or at least two of them that were shot, were there in support of Jacob Blake, a young black man who had been shot by the police in the back several days ago, or a few days before that. So you understand why people were upset. People were upset about what happened. So now some guy in this Matthewson, former town alderman, decides to make a phone call or leave or put a message on Facebook. And guess where else? Alex Jones' website, He got involved with InfoWars, right? He leaves a message there. We already know the type of people that are on those websites. Conspiracy theory types, ultra right-wing people who believe in all kind of crazy theories, including some who believe that Donald Trump's vice president was going to be JFK. He was going to come back to life, and he was going to be the vice president of the United States. You think that's silly? There are people who actually believe that crap. But again, he called out these men. They weren't vetted people with guns. They were people he said were citizens with weapons who would stand there in opposition to protests. Now, here's the other thing. I know I'm going back to my last video. There were some members of that group that night that was egging on the crowd that was coming down the street that the police, by the way, had forced down the street where the men with guns were. And they knew the men were there because they had talked to them earlier. They forced this group in that direction. Okay? So this sets up a situation. Kyle Rittenhouse said he was there to be a first aid, but he's armed with an AR-15. He runs to another dealership. He was protecting this dealership, but he runs to another one to stop. He says they were vandalizing there, so he was running down there to be there. He was by himself. I don't know if any of his fellow members joined him in that run down to this particular place, but what was he going to do when he got there? When you say Keystone Cops, this is that situation where you got Keystone Cops. I've got a gun. Now all of a sudden I'm the authority. Why? Because it's an issue of people who feel a lack of power, and that a gun gives them authority and the power over something. These militias have existed forever. These same militias go down to the border trying to handle the quote-unquote border crisis. We're here to help the police. That sets up chances for incidents of death there as well. Now, what does the Kyle Rittenhouse case really mean in the overall picture? There's a lot. 30 states have what we call a stand your ground law of various degrees. Wisconsin is kind of unique in that it's based on your being on your property and protecting your property. But it has extended in the case of Kyle Rittenhouse to the fact that this man was out in the street and guy threw a plastic bag at the back of his head, and he heard a gunshot go off, so suddenly Rittenhouse becomes a threat, so he shoots him. He flees from that scene. Another man hits him in the back of the head with a skateboard. He falls to the ground. He shoots him for hitting him with that skateboard. Then the other man approaches him with a gun. He shoots him. So all of them seem like a threat. Every last one of them. But the question that I have with stand your ground laws, what if an individual puts himself in a dangerous situation on purpose? This goes all the way back to Trayvon Martin. The gentleman in that one was a Neighborhood Watch Association person. Police told him not to approach the individual walking down the street. He said he looked hostile. The man had not committed a crime. All he had was Reese's and something to drink in his hand. This man ends up in a fight, in a tussle with him, and he gets killed. Gets killed. Trayvon Martin, this little 15-year-old boy, gets killed by this grown man with a gun. Kyle Rittenhouse. And it has been a fight. The conservatives have been fighting forever because they say this is their right that's being attacked with these cases. So Kyle Rittenhouse becomes the poster boy for that white supremacist belief of gun ownership. I'm not opposed to the Second Amendment rights, but you understand it's not equally enforced or believed. NRA organization a couple of years ago, people were coming out about their rights to protest and things like this. They bring out a video coming out against the First Amendment right of of Black Lives Matter. Now, they believe in the Second Amendment right. That's what the NRA stands for. But they came out with a video literally against Black Lives Matter. It was several years ago that they helped enact a law that hurt the Black Panthers. This same organization, NRA, that believes in gun rights. The law is not equally enforced based on the color of your skin. Again, Kyle Rittenhouse is another mark on that case. It opens the door to more armed men going to riots, quote unquote, or peaceful protests, which is the true thing, armed with vests, setting themselves up in a situation where they feel threatened. And now we have a mass casualty event. And they think they may get away with it. We've let this happen in the United States. We've really let this happen in the United States. So let me sober up for a minute. What are some of the other effects of this? Now, Kyle Rittenhouse has killed 2 people and injured a third. He got his friend Dominic Black to buy him a weapon. While Kyle Rittenhouse is free of any charges, his friend is about to face charges, possibly, which he is about to face, for the purchasing of an AR-15 and giving a firearm to an underage individual under the age of 18. That's federal law that he violated. Dominic Black. The weapon was at his house. Kyle's mother dropped him off at Dominic Black's house. Kyle received the weapon there and then used it. But he had given Dominic Black the money for that, to buy that weapon. So Kyle Rittenhouse technically is the owner of that weapon. Now, here's the other thing. Kyle Rittenhouse will now face other federal charges. For instance, Anthony Huber, father, has filed a federal lawsuit against the city of Kenosha. The sheriff and other unnamed law enforcement agents have been named in lawsuit alleging that officers used racial animus in allowing white armed men among protesters, leading to the condition that caused the death of his son. So now the sheriff that I talked about in the last video is going to face a lawsuit. The city and the county of Kenosha are facing a lawsuit because of this incident. How it will turn out, we don't know either. There may be other lawsuits that follow. Maybe someone will come after Mathewson for the death of these 2 individuals and the maiming of the other. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. I still feel that he holds a high responsibility for everything that happened, because he was the one who put the Facebook post up. He was the one who went to InfoWars. He is the one who had the call for this, like the Minutemen, like Paul Revere. He was trying to do the Paul Revere situation, like he's calling for the Minutemen to show up. Now, in that case, when they did show up in Lexington, Kentucky, what happened? 72 men died, right? Or 14, something like that. 14 men died, something like that. They died at the hands of the British soldiers. Now, in this case, 2 men died that were protesters. Here's the other effect that we're not seeing here. The news media is having a field day with the division between Black Lives Matter, or between the people on the one side that are against what Kyle Rittenhouse did and the people on the other side supporting him. Gun sales will probably increase significantly. And again, the issue at hand is pretty simple to put forward. The issue at hand is this. A gun was fired. A gun was used because a person there wanted to feel important, necessary in the moment, and to make a statement. There were people there making a statement with the guns they had. If they were wearing bulletproof vests, they had another statement they were making. It's about power. Who controls the power? There's a fear in this country. If you turn on the TV and you watch Tucker Carlson, he gets on there talking about demographics. And I mentioned his name. I said I would never mention his name on my show, but I'm going to mention it. He gets 3 million viewers a night. At the same time he's on TV, the other two stations, MSNBC and CNN, get 1.5 million viewers total. But he gets 3 million viewers a night. He talks about changing demographics in the country, about the fear of immigrants at the border, about how the Democrats are trying to replace white people. That is what he's doing. Fear-mongering leads to people feeling powerless. And when they feel powerless, they go for what they think will make them keep that power or gain more power. And a weapon is one. How do I keep my neighborhoods from changing? They watch TV. They see the violence on TV. They've seen 9/11 ruin this country too. Remember John Ashcroft? He said, let us not let these terrorists forget who we are. But we're headed in that direction. That's why January 6th happened. This all led up to January 6th. We have forgotten who we are. So now we're two opposed camps. And some people are profiting off of it. TV channels, TV personalities, like I said. Tucker Carlson is one. Some of these right-wing radio stations. CNN to some point, and MSNBC also. Nobody's listening to the warning bells when people say, hey, hold up, wait a minute now. We're opposed to a fellow Americans who just may have a different of opinion. Most of them are like you. The guy holding the gun or the guy on the Black Lives Matter side, they're like you. They're working people every day trying to figure out a way to feed their families. Most of them. Now, there are some of them who are just bums with guns. No criminals who break into buildings. There are some. But they aren't really that way. See, these people, like I said, but the image is there. It's white males feel like they're losing their tranquility, their empire, so to speak. So they've got to pick up a gun and protect it. Yet these militias have existed for decades and centuries, but right now, in this hour, they have found the power. See, our country didn't deal with something that it always talks about other countries having pockets of terrorists or these armed militia groups in their countries that attack other people. Well, in our country, we've had these armed militia groups here. Remember the Oklahoma bombing? Or the abortion clinic, that bombing, or the Olympic Park bombing. All those were domestic. They weren't by a foreign actor. They were by people here who belonged to organizations that were considered terrorist groups, but never were given that designation until recently. See, America has a problem. It has a white nationalist problem. It has a Rittenhouse problem. But the problem is more and more Americans are starting to fall to that side. Look what's going on in Virginia. Now, people will tell me I'm wrong for this, but a lot of white mothers said the reason they voted for a Republican was because they're worried about what they're teaching in their schools. They're worried about this thing called CRT when they don't even know what CRT really is. We're worried about what we see happening at the border more so than we're also worried about inflation. What's happening with inflation, that's the issue in the country. But it becomes part of the whole powerless feeling. I got a gun, and all these organizations don't get that they're destroying what I believe in. They're destroying everything that I believe in instead of you seeing why they are protesting. They're not there to destroy it. They're there to change it for the better of everybody. See, Kyle Rittenhouse killed 2 white men and injured a 3rd white man. Those weren't black people. But the premise behind why people with armed guns was there. And it may not have been Kyle Rittenhouse, but it sure definitely was Matthewson. It was because he didn't like Black Lives Matter being in his city, and he felt that they were violent. It didn't matter what happened to Joseph Blake. It didn't matter at all. They were there to protect the property against the Black Lives Matter protesters. And as I said before, Dominic Black faces charges. Kyle Rittenhouse gets off. Anthony Huber's father is suing because he's lost his child. Anthony Huber's girlfriend cries every night because she no longer has her boyfriend. So is Rittenhouse's girlfriend. Maybe even his family mourns for him. He was in a lonely situation. America, what are we doing, man? We're tearing each other apart. I know I just got here and I sat here and talked. And you said, well, you talk like you one of them. I talk like I'm an American. That's what I talk like. I would assume you're an American too. Don't let them play the game with you. See, in the end, what's going to happen is it's going to boost gun sales. It's going to make somebody a lot of money. That means we've played the game. All right, America. I hope y'all have a wonderful night. Done with my rant. Peace.